3 locations, 3 pieces of evidence, 3 reasons this case is still open. The front porch, where blood confirmed to be Nancy Guthrie's was found, on stone steps that investigators initially did not identify. A reporter did. The circle driveway, where a former FBI evidence response team agent says she believes a vehicle was staged, on a decomposed granite surface that may or may not have been forensically processed before foot traffic and vehicles disturbed it. And the inside of the house itself, where a mixed DNA sample containing genetic material that may belong to whoever took her is the subject of a technology race that has no confirmed finish line. Day 71. 10 weeks and 1 day since Nancy Guthrie, 84 years old, mother of television anchor Savannah Guthrie, was taken from her home in the Catalina foothills of Tucson, Arizona. No arrest, no named suspect, no confirmed proof of life. A $1 million family reward and a $50,000 federal reward both remain unclaimed. This is the Febry Report. Today we are going through every active evidence thread in this investigation. What investigators have, what they have tried, what has not worked, and where the case now stands. On the night of January 31st into February 1st, Nancy was dropped off at home at approximately 9:45 p.m. by her son-in-law, following dinner at her daughter Annie's home. At 1:47 a.m., a masked, armed individual appeared on doorbell camera footage. He tried 2 methods to disable the camera before covering the lens with porch foliage. At 2:28, Nancy's pacemaker disconnected from its paired phone app. Her blood was found on the steps. Her medication, phone, and purse were left inside. The FBI, Pima County Sheriff's Department, and U.S. Customs and Border Protection are all active in the investigation. Over 18,000 tips have been received. None has produced an arrest. Let us go through every evidence thread. Thread 1. The pacemaker. Most coverage of this case has treated the 2:28 a.m. timestamp as a clean endpoint, the moment the trail goes dark. That framing is not precise, and understanding what the pacemaker actually does and does not record is essential for understanding what the FBI has been working with for 71 days. At 2:28, the Bluetooth sync between Nancy's pacemaker and the monitoring app on her phone broke. That is not the same as the device stopping. Digital forensics experts who have reviewed this publicly confirm that the connection breaks when the device goes out of range of the paired phone, not when the pacemaker stops functioning. Nancy's phone was left inside the house. She was moved out of range of the phone. The sync broke. The pacemaker continued. What modern pacemakers do continuously is record. Every pacing pulse, every arrhythmia, every significant cardiac event is time-stamped and stored in internal memory. In many models, an accelerometer also records physical movement. The device distinguishes between the patient walking voluntarily and the patient being carried or transported. The cloud transmission, the near real-time data stream to the manufacturer's monitoring platform, stopped when the Bluetooth connection broke, but the internal record did not. The FBI subpoenaed the cloud data from the manufacturer within the first week of the investigation. The manufacturer complied. Investigators also deployed what is known as a signal sniffer, a device that uses an amplifier and a directional antenna to detect the specific Bluetooth MAC address of Nancy's pacemaker. The technology was mounted on helicopters flying at low altitudes over the search areas. One expert described it as similar to walking around with Nancy's phone, waiting for it to connect, but at a much larger scale and with a much more powerful amplifier. As of day 71, no confirmed detection of Nancy's pacemaker signal has been publicly reported. Digital forensics experts who have discussed the technology publicly note that the signal can be blocked by concrete structures, metal buildings, or significant distance, and that detection requires being within a specific proximity of the device. One expert described it as looking for a small object in a backyard with a microscope. You have to be at the right spot at the right time. What the cloud data did confirm was the last data point before the sync broke. The pacemaker disconnected. The internal record continued, and what that internal record shows about the 41 minutes between 1:47 and 2:28, whether it shows cardiac stress consistent with a fear response, accelerometer patterns consistent with being physically transported, or any other physiological event, has not been made public. The FBI has the data. They have not disclosed what it shows. That silence is significant. In a case with this level of public attention and this level of sustained media scrutiny, investigators do not withhold data points unless those data points are active evidentiary assets, which means what the pacemaker recorded is likely being held for a reason. Thread 2. The blood evidence. The blood on the front steps was confirmed to belong to Nancy. Former FBI Evidence Response Team agent Maureen O'Connell reviewed publicly available evidence and noted that the pattern of the blood droplets, described as circular and evenly spaced, is consistent with vertical fall, meaning the blood likely fell from above rather than from a horizontal impact. That pattern, she noted, is consistent with Nancy being carried from the house with her head tilted, consistent with someone who was unconscious or semi-conscious when removed. She described the blood as showing signs of aspiration, suggesting Nancy was likely still alive, but possibly unconscious when she was taken through the front door. That forensic reading is significant for two reasons. First, it provides a physiological detail about Nancy's condition at the moment of removal. Second, it supports the theory that the front door, not the rear of the property, was the actual exit point. Thread 3. The circle driveway. O'Connell did not just assess the blood. She looked at the entire property as captured in drone footage and drew a specific professional conclusion about vehicle staging. She said she believes the vehicle that transported Nancy was positioned at the circle driveway at the front of the property. Her reasoning involved the rear of the property, the back gate, and a neighbor's dog. Dogs in quiet residential neighborhoods react to unfamiliar vehicles and unfamiliar people at 2 a.m. If a vehicle was staged at the rear and the dog began reacting, the operational risk, a light turning on, a neighbor stepping outside, becomes real. The front circle driveway offers the same tactical utility. Pull in, load, roll forward, gone. The forensic challenge is the surface. The circle driveway is paved in decomposed granite, loose, granular desert material that compresses under vehicle tires but does not hold impressions the way wet soil or mud does. Recovering a tire. Impression in decomposed granite requires oblique lighting, a light source positioned nearly parallel to the surface to cast shadows in the compression pattern and make it visible enough to photograph with scale markers. Without that technique, the impression may be invisible to a standard camera under normal daylight conditions, even while being physically present in the surface. O'Connell reviewed the drone footage and said she did not observe forensic tire impression work being conducted on the circle driveway surface. She was careful to note that the FBI may have processed that area before cameras were overhead, but she could not confirm it happened from what she could see. And an FBI ERT agent who cannot confirm that the potentially most important vehicle staging location on the property was processed is a concern, not a caveat. The FBI's tire tread database covers the majority of commercially available passenger, truck, and commercial vehicle tires. A confirmed impression from the circle driveway could narrow the vehicle class and generate a specific lead. That chain starts with the impression. And the impression in decomposed granite survives only as long as the surface is protected. Once foot traffic, subsequent vehicle access, or desert wind disturbs the granules, the window closes. Thread 4. The DNA. The glove found approximately 2 miles from Nancy's home appeared visually consistent with the type worn by the suspect in doorbell camera footage. The FBI confirmed it visually matched at least the style. DNA was recovered and analyzed. The result traced to a local restaurant worker with no connection to the case. The lead was closed. The DNA recovered from inside the home tells a different story, and it is the story this investigation has been waiting to resolve since the first week. A mixed sample containing genetic material from more than one person includes a component that cannot be attributed to Nancy or anyone in her family or known circle. If that component belongs to whoever entered the house on January 31st, isolating and profiling it would produce the single most powerful piece of evidence in this case. The technical problem is deconvolution. SNP-based genetic analysis, the type used in investigative genetic genealogy, has only been in forensic use since approximately 2018. The software packages for separating complex mixtures in this platform are still being developed. A new machine is expected in coming months that may allow deconvolution to begin at the instrument level rather than requiring computational reconstruction after the fact. Genetic genealogist C.C. Moore said publicly that she believes a company accelerated its release schedule specifically because of the visibility of this case. If a clean profile is eventually obtained, it goes into databases used for investigative genetic genealogy. Those databases currently hold fewer than 2 million profiles. The large consumer platforms, which contain tens of millions of profiles, require court orders for law enforcement access. The identification process builds outward from relative matches. With a smaller pool, fewer relatives appear, and the tree takes longer to construct. Former FBI agent Maureen O'Connell this week specifically called on the FBI to release a formal criminal profile. She said the Bureau has enough from physical evidence, behavioral analysis, and the suspect's 2-visit pattern: reconnaissance on January 11th, execution on January 31st. To construct a profile that would help focus public tip submissions without compromising the investigation. She asked directly, why is this not happening? That question has not received a public answer. Thread 5. The Ransom communications. The original 2 notes, the $4 million demand and then the $6 million demand with a February 9th deadline, were assessed by the FBI as likely authentic. The family was prepared to pay. Investigators believed they had a method of tracing the Bitcoin wallet. A deposit of less than $300 was made into the account, likely as part of a trace attempt. The trace did not work. The original note writer went completely silent and has not communicated since. A second note source, not claiming to be the abductor but claiming to have information, has sent multiple communications to a media organization demanding Bitcoin for the identity of the kidnappers. This week, additional notes from that source arrived. One claimed Nancy is dead. One claimed she was seen alive in Sonora, Mexico. The credibility of these notes has been publicly questioned by former investigators who have reviewed them. All have been forwarded to the FBI. The Bitcoin trail itself is not dead. Every transaction on a blockchain is permanently recorded. If the wallet associated with the original ransom notes has been touched, through an exchange, a conversion, a transfer, blockchain forensic specialists can follow the record. Whether the FBI has found actionable activity in those wallets has not been publicly disclosed. Thread 6. Cell tower data. This is one of the most underreported investigative threads in this case, and one that former law enforcement professionals have identified as one of the most potentially productive. Every phone that was active in the area around Nancy Guthrie's home between midnight and 4 a.m. on February 1st was logged by the nearest cell towers. Those logs are records. They tell investigators which devices were present, how long they stayed, and where those devices went afterward. A device that was in the neighborhood at 1:47 in the morning and then moved south toward the border at a pace consistent with vehicle travel in the hours that followed is a device that deserves scrutiny. A retired FBI supervisory special agent who spoke publicly about this case said that the FBI's cellular analysis survey team is almost certainly processing mountains of cell tower data from that night and the days surrounding it. He said investigators likely already have names that have surfaced from that data and been evaluated, some cleared, others potentially still in play in ways that are not visible from outside the investigation. The cell tower picture is the one investigative thread that is almost entirely invisible from the public record, but that, according to professionals with experience in this methodology, is likely one of the richest data environments in the entire case. Every phone is a potential thread, and the FBI knows how to follow threads. Thread 7, the physical suspect profile. The masked individual captured on February 1st doorbell footage was described by the FBI as male, approximately 5'9" to 5'10", average build, black mustache. He carried a 25-liter Ozark Trail hiking backpack sold exclusively at Walmart. He carried an apparent firearm in an unusual front body holster position, a carry style associated with specific tactical training. The FBI said it believes his clothing and face mask were also purchased at Walmart. On January 11th, 3 weeks before the abduction, a figure consistent with this description was observed at Nancy's front door, without the backpack and without visible abduction equipment. That visit was reconnaissance. The 3-week interval between the two visits represents a specific planning cycle. Forensic weight distribution analysis of how the 25-liter backpack was worn in the doorbell footage suggested to investigators reviewing that footage that the bag may have contained restraint materials or medical equipment. Its load appeared inconsistent with standard hiking gear distribution. That detail, if confirmed, points to a person who came prepared not just to take Nancy, but to manage her physically during and after removal. Where does the investigation go from here? Savannah Guthrie returned to her broadcast desk this week. She said she was ready or not, and she sat down and did the news. Her colleagues at the Today Show had been given instructions before her return, briefed on how to handle the moment with appropriate care, how to receive their colleague in a way that acknowledged everything without making the broadcast itself about the grief she has been carrying for over 10 weeks. A source familiar with the situation said Savannah had been battling what was described as an emotional roller coaster leading up to her return. That is not surprising. It is honest. She has been publicly carrying something that no amount of professional composure can fully neutralize, and the decision to return to work, to be seen, to be present, to maintain the visibility that former FBI agents say is one of the most powerful pressures building on whoever is responsible for this, was a decision made in the context of still not having any resolution. Former FBI agent Jason Pack said this week that the walls are closing, not because of a single development, because of the mathematics of secrets held by more than one person over an extended period. Every morning Savannah Guthrie sits at that desk, the case remains in public consciousness. Every morning that happens, the people holding this secret carry more. The pacemaker data is with investigators. The cell tower data is with investigators. The DNA analysis is active. The blockchain forensics are ongoing. The tire impression question has been raised by a named practitioner and deserves an answer. There are also questions that have not received adequate public attention. The retribution motive raised by FBI behavioral analysis specialist Dr. Ann Burgess, the possibility that this abduction was not primarily about money, but was a personal act directed at someone in this family's orbit, has not been publicly addressed by the sheriff or the FBI. The sheriff said he knows the motive, but would not say what it is. That silence is one of the most significant unresolved elements in the public record. The $1 million reward from the Guthrie family is active. The FBI tip line is 1-800-CALL-FBI. Anonymous submissions at tips.fbi.gov. Nancy Guthrie has been missing for 71 days. The porch, the driveway, and the DNA. 3 locations, 3 evidence threads, 3 reasons this case is still open, and 3 reasons it has not permanently closed.